guys. I appreciate it. Am I right in saying you're both local to me? I'm in East Lothian. Where are you both just now?
I'm Edinburgh, and Ian's Exeter.
Sorry,
Exeter.
I'm English.
You're English. You're English. Okay, but guys, we are recording. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. I mean, you guys were not. I don't want you to go straight into the exciting bit just yet, but you were pretty much headline news the last couple of days when I started searching for you online on social media and Instagram, and it wasn't hard to find you. Once I asked a few people, does anyone know these lads? I saw Midlothian man attacked by pirates, and then found your story. So, guys, welcome to the show, John, Ian, or Buffalo and Jan, as you both seem to be introduced to me. Great to have you both here. But John, I'll start with you. You're an Edinburgh man. Take me back. Where did it all begin for you, and then you obviously into your military career?
Yeah, born and raised on the outskirts of Edinburgh, out near Rosewell. Joined the military, joined the Marines when I was about 25 years old. Went down to Exeter and spent 8 years in the Marines in various places, mostly in the UK. And ended up meeting Jan out in the Indian Ocean. 2019, was it?
2018, yeah.
18, yeah.
And Jan, you're down in Exeter still, and obviously is that where you were born and bred and then joined the military there?
Yeah, I was born sort of near London and then moved down to Dartmoor. I was about 7 years old and joined the Marines when I was 20 years old and did 11 years. Yeah, and met Johnny Buffalo in the Indian Ocean and sparked a romance there.
A bromance. Buffalo, where's that nickname come from?
I suppose you'd have to ask Ian. It's not well, go for it.
Basically, you know the international drinking rules where you can only drink with your left hand. While we're on the island called Diego Garcia, that was kind of enforced by the Marines that were there. Johnny is absolutely crap at drinking with his left hand, so he just kept having to buffalo his drinks. And in the end, I just started calling him Johnny Buffalo, and it's stuck.
And I'm still drinking with my right.
I just noticed that as you took a drink as he was telling the story of why you got your nickname. It could be a lot worse. Hey, that's I've been on a few rugby tours in my time, and a few punishments dished out because of buffaloes. So fair enough. So you met in the Indian Ocean. What was happening out
there? I suppose it's a bit of a contentious issue in the press recently, but we're out in Diego Garcia. So Britain has a claim in the island, and a few other countries also have a claim in the island. But we were just conducting sovereignty patrols, anti-fishing patrols, drinking a few cocktails, and cutting about on a Zodiac in the paradise. So it was pretty good fun.
And what from Edinburgh? I mean, knowing Edinburgh well, being an Edinburgh guy myself, what took you to the Marines, Sean? Was it just, is it in the family? Is it something like that, or is it something that just interests you?
No, it's not in the family, but it's well known to be the best military training you can get certainly within the UK, and I just wanted that test, so that was the only place to go.
And am I right in saying, though, maybe your dad wasn't military background, but has he got an adventure background?
Yeah, he was a climber all through his teens, 20s and 30s, quite a few different expeditions, including an attempt to ascend a first attempt at ascending the southwest face of Everest with Chris Bonington. I think that was in 72. Lots of other expeditions. He was out in Peru in 68, and that's where he came up with the idea of the expedition that Jan and I then went and tried to achieve. So yeah, he's done a lot, and he's the inspiration of probably all of my adventurous spirit.
Just take me there quickly. 1972, trying to get up Everest. What are his stories like back then of kit and what it was like, conditions, compared to what you see today and the technology you can go up with?
Yeah, well, he's actually just finished his book, and Chris Bonington, who's the climber of the generation, he's a legend of that generation, has got back to him recently and said he couldn't put it down. So hopefully it's going to get published pretty soon, and you'll be able to read all the stories. It'll be called Brass Monkey. But yeah, he's got lots of stories about the kit being a lot heavier, and things were just tougher then, and there's a lot. I've got a huge amount of respect for people doing what things similar to us, but with a lot worse and heavier equipment.
That's it. Unbelievable. It must have been the conditions. We see it these days with people queuing to get to the top and how many people can do it and things like that. If you've got enough money, you can have a go at it. Back then, you can't imagine. So, I mean, there's me lining up my next podcast guest when your dad releases his book. That sounds very interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd be happy to come on.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, and yourself, obviously, military background in the family, or what took you to the Special Forces and into the Marines?
Yeah, a lot of basically lots of police and nurses. Like my family seem to love a uniform. It's only this generation that I have a cousin, a brother, and a brother-in-law in the Marines. So I took my inspiration from my brother joining, and I gave it a crack. Didn't think I'd make it, to be honest. I hate cross-country running, but then just persevered and was lucky, young enough and dumb enough to get through, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I've had quite a few Marines on the show. I mean, any highlights from you guys from your training, from getting to the end of it? Any memorable moments?
That's a hard one, to be honest. Memorable. There's quite a few memorable moments. I think doing wet and dry on my 21st birthday was pretty good in a ditch on Woodbury Common. Yeah, I could go as far as saying that. I think just getting through it is great because it's a bit long, a bit of a lengthy training.
Yeah, you the same, Buffalo? Any good stories or any injuries or anything like that?
I did get an injury, which put me back a couple of weeks, which really annoyed me at the time. But that definitely wasn't a highlight. That was the opposite to a highlight. To be honest, some of the thrashings were highlights. They're horrible at the time, but they stick with you forever. Like, proper horrible thrashings that you'd get on Woodbury or up and down hills. So, but they're all great for they do what they're aimed to do. They test you, and you realise that you can get through worse things because of them.
When you both say that you met that time in the Indian Ocean, were you with different companies and then you went your separate ways and you kept in touch, or did you just merge there and then and that was you guys stuck together for a long time? How did the friendship blossom from there after meeting out at sea?
So a really small team of Brits out there. There's about 40 of us, and then I think maybe 30 were bootnecks, Jan, or maybe a bit less than that.
Yeah, roughly between 20 and 30. Yeah.
Yeah. So you basically just spend a whole year together, and Ian and I and two other absolute legends called Cookie and Andy were in a room together out there. So yeah, we just bonded pretty much straight away, and we're working really closely together, and the patrols and things were pretty technical and at points, so you'd have to work as a good team together, and Ian was leading the charge, so he was our corporal out there.
Was Andy pretty well behaved? Is he the only one that didn't come out with a nickname, or?
He's got a few nicknames too, to be honest.
So take us to Summit to Sea. Obviously, between the military and everything you're doing, and you mentioned your dad there, John. He's been to Peru, and that's maybe a bit of the inspiration. How did it all come around? Summit to Sea, the challenge, the charity, everything that you've been doing.
Yeah, so I guess 2 years ago, I was just coming out of the Corps, and I think my dad recognised that I needed a next project, so he just said, I've thought of this a long time ago, and it might be worthwhile you looking into it. His idea was just basically to travel down the Amazon from its highest source, and he told me about Chimborazo, which is a volcano in Ecuador. And if you imagine the planet's slightly oval, so the poles are a bit squashed and the equator's a little bit further away. So if you measure from the top of Chimborazo into the center of the Earth, that's the farthest point away from the center of the Earth, or the closest place on Earth to the sun. So that highest place on Earth is also one of the sources of the greatest river on Earth. The Amazon expels more fresh water into the oceans than the next 7 greatest rivers combined. So it's by far the greatest river on the planet. So the highest place on Earth also being the source of that river was a great project. And as far as we could tell, nobody had done it before. I'd just done a course at SRUC college online, and I'd learned how to do a bit of GIS mapping. So I basically mapped it all, realized it was doable, and then as soon as I had that, I called Jan. And we started getting a team together.
I was going to say, Jan, what were you doing at the time? Were you looking for something as well and just up for a challenge, or was it completely out of the blue when you got the call?
I mean, I was looking to kind of do something around the world, be it security or anything really. I still had a kind of a itch that needed to be scratched, I guess. And then I got an email through from John saying, "Do you fancy going to the Amazon and climbing this mountain and following it down over sort of 7 months or so?" And I just said, "Yeah, that sounds all right." So,
Simple as that.
Do that.
Yeah, fair enough. So you've got Jan, and I can see from the website there's a bit of a team behind Summit to See. What was it like getting your team together?
Yeah, it was pretty easy, to be honest. Jan was the only one that could commit to the whole expedition, and it kind of worked out well. We had different specialists coming in for different stages. Like my brother's a good climber and good on rope, so it was good to have him on Chimborazo, and then coming down the sort of smaller rivers where we might need to abseil waterfalls, etc. He's a experienced rope access technician and like does a lot of outdoor stuff anyway. So he was on for that section, Ben. And we had a good friend of Ian's called Liam, who's now a good friend of all of ours. And he's a doctor and he's had a lot of experience in all around the world dealing with people's injuries. So he was great to have on the mountain as well. And he kind of set us up with medical equipment for the whole expedition. And then a good friend of mine, Jake, who is an experienced paddler, has done a lot of big rivers, came in for stage 2 and 3, which were going to be the most sort of daunting paddling parts for us. So it's great having them on board for those stages. And then, of course, later on we had the girls come out, Ian's girlfriend Cara and Moira, and helped us with some scientific work. We're collecting sound data for Moira. So the whole team came together very well, and it kind of came together somehow by accident. It just worked out really.
Were you guys like physically fit before this, or I mean, obviously you just coming out the core, John, or what was training like? Because obviously, if you've got climbing, paddling, you've got a lot of endurance in there. You've got obviously from your military background, you'll have experience of sleeping under the stars and all that sort of stuff. And there's probably not much that anyone could throw at you that you wouldn't be able to handle. But training wise, did you have to up it? Did you have to change anything, diet, things like that?
Yeah, I was lucky. Ben and I worked together both in rope access, so we were up doing hills all the time and taking weight up hills in Scotland. So we did a lot of that for the mountain. Basically, all my training was around Chimborazo because that was the sort of worrying thing. But I think I knew that we just needed to be robust, not necessarily fit as fiddles. Like Chimborazo is a hard mountain, but it's just over 6,000 meters, so it's not like doing Everest, but it's still tough. Yeah, so we all made sure we were. I wouldn't say I've lost too much fitness since leaving the Marines. So try and just keep that up.
Are you in good shape, Jan? Were you ready to go on day one?
I wasn't too bad. I don't think I was training as much as John, and I definitely felt it. I was kind of relying on the old, I'll be all right. I was in the Marines, wasn't I? It's fine. I was going out some of those when you get into Quito, into Ecuador, we were struggling to sleep the first few nights because you just wake up like struggling for breath because of the altitude. So the altitude definitely hit me hard. I'd been to the Himalayas before, up to about 4,000 meters, but not doing any real training. So when we were doing a couple of different mountains, one called Tongarua, which is a massive ashy volcano, and that was an absolute lick. But then,
that was hard.
Fortunately, I couldn't get up up Chimborazo because my lungs had sort of developed some kind of infection. So I had to make the call that I couldn't really stop the team, if you know what I mean. So bit of a rubbish one, but it was necessary.
And what about permissions and things? You can't just rock up and do this, can you? Can you just go in or do you have to get permission from the local government? So you're going to be in the country for a certain amount of time doing a challenge, doing things for charity. How do you get in and how do you do that process?
I did know this when I was planning it. It's kind of slipped my mind since recent events. But yeah, I think mountains over a certain size in Ecuador, you need to take a guide up. So we had to have guides, and it's a good thing we did because they were good lads. So yeah, we needed a guide. We needed, I think the visas worked out that we just had to be in and out of each country within 90 days. So that was fine for us. We weren't going to be in anywhere for more than that. Maybe Brazil touching on 90 days, but we'd deal with that when we got to Brazil. But yeah, getting into Peru ended up to be a bit of a nightmare because as we were coming down the Pastaza River, which is quite a substantial tributary of the Marathon, which is a big tributary of the Amazon. There was just a place, a border crossing that nobody really uses, so there wasn't any immigration there. So it created a lot of issues for us when we eventually managed to get to an immigration office in Iquitos, like deep into Peru. We ended up having to go back to Ecuador to get visas and things, and so that was an issue. But I don't think we really could have got around it. It was just something that we had to do: go back and get stamps and then come back again.
And what's the split on the journey between paddling and actual walking? How far would you go away from the river, from the Amazon and things like that? Is there you'll obviously had a map, a route that you were planning to go, but could you deviate if things happened? And obviously we'll get to what did happen, but if something really went wrong, are you allowed to just pick another route, or how did that work?
No, we had to follow the direction in which water flows. So from the top of Chimborazo, we sort of stood on the summit, and then just under the glacier, we got ourselves into this bowl, which we decided this was the highest catchment area. So this bowl just under the glacier catches all the avalanche snow, and it catches the mist and the dew and everything like that. And then we basically had to follow that first trickle into the Rio Chimborazo, and we couldn't deviate. We couldn't go up over a valley and into another river and then follow it that way. We were very strict that we had to follow the river valley.
So you were literally in the boat off the mountain, coming down into the Amazon.
So yeah, walking for 170 odd K from the first little trickle down the Rio Chimborazo, Rio Chibunga, Rio Chambo, and then quite a ways down the Pastaza, past a town called Banos, to a place called Shell. And then from there, we were able to get into whitewater rafts and raft the next section, because it was still far too big and rough for a canoe. But we could raft then down to a place called Copataza, and from there it was flat water, and then we were into canoes. And so the vast majority of the expedition was going to be on canoes, but the first maybe 200, just over 200K was, maybe just under 400K was walking and rafting.
And Jan, when you heard the Amazon, when you got that email and you spoke to Buffalo and you were like, Amazon, when I hear the Amazon, I hear anacondas, crocodiles, the wildlife. Have you got jungle experience from the Marines and things like that? Did you know what you were getting yourself into?
I haven't got so much jungle experience from the Marines, kind of specific jungle training. There's a little bit of jungle I've sort of played in the Marines in Diego Garcia on the island, but there's not much to really write home about. But I've spent quite a bit of time in Africa and sort of varying jobs. One of them working with the Ebola crisis, and another time I went back and worked in the sort of anti-poaching. So when John sort of said about the Amazon, I was, I think about the wildlife, but I think until you've seen a river filled with crocs or hippos, who are genuine killers, I know with the Amazon, there are anacondas, but a lot of it's kind of, I guess, myth in the sense of, piranhas ripping your legs off and such like. It just doesn't happen. So I wasn't really too worried about the creepy crawlies are a different thing. Those and bugs, they're heinous, but the actual larger kind of animals, predators, I wasn't really too worried about. And I guess that's kind of something you just deal with when you see them and just scream and run.
See there, and this is what I do when I hear something that interests me. See you talk there about anti-poaching. How long were you in that? What was, John, I'm going to deviate here. What was that like? Was that out at night catching the poachers and all that sort of stuff? Was that quite a wild experience?
I had a very limited role because I went to Zimbabwe to go and kind of just have a look at it with some friends who are ex-Marines, and they very much in charge and get involved. But going as a Brit over to Zimbabwe and doing too much is you're in sort of dodgy territory. So I'd go and kind of help with sort of troop training, and then maybe go off and search for poachers, but in a very limited role, because I was more there just to learn. So I definitely can't say I was an anti-poacher. I was just kind of running around in a bush having a good time, really.
Got you. John, you laughed there earlier when Jan said the bugs and the insects. What was going on with them? Were they pretty severe, were they?
Yeah, they were by far the most annoying problem. The mozzies. Well, actually, the sandflies I'd say were even worse. Seem to get used to the mosquito bites eventually, but sandflies will get you everywhere and constantly, and they'll always turn up when your hands are full and you can't defend yourself. But
yeah. What are they quite big? Quite big flies buzzing around, and
the sandflies are tiny, so you can't even really see them. They get in and they give you really itchy bites for days and days. They last. The mosquito bites seem to go after a day or so, and then you'd have a lot of horseflies and things as well. So we want it to be when you're out in the middle of the river and it's 2K wide, you think you're away from all the sides, you'll be fine, and you can strip off a bit and let the winds on your skin and go for a dip, but you're just constantly swatting insects away, no matter where you are, how high you are, how far from the shore you are. They're literally everywhere. And it's apparently due to deforestation as well. I don't know much about it, but the more the place is getting chopped down, the bigger the mosquito problem is, and the more malaria is coming into the area as well. So it is actually a serious issue, despite the itches.
What I took from that, I mean, I've obviously got this wrong. Go for a dip. Were you going for a wash in the Amazon and jumping in and all that sort of stuff?
Essential, yeah.
And it's me and everyone else that's listening that's thinking crocodiles, snakes, everything that's under the water. That just wasn't a factor for you.
See, the good thing is the water's murky, so you can't see it coming. So as long as you don't see it,
whatever. I think I'd prefer to see it was in the water, so I knew not to get in.
Yeah. No, you needed to swim. Like the water was nice and cool, and it was up to 38 degrees sometimes with no wind, and because you've got your trousers on, trying to avoid the mosquito bites, you're just roasting. So you needed a couple of dips a day.
Yeah, and what about sleeping? Were you sleeping in the rafts, in the canoes, or were you going on land and setting up camp, or how was that? What was the process there, Jan?
We have really good Hennessy hammocks, and they are brilliant. And I've had some of my best night's sleep in them sort of period. They're absolutely brilliant, and really good for your back. I was chuffed. And we'd usually if you're actually sleeping in the trees, it's pretty comfortable. You just got to get in them and get away from the mozzies. Because mozzie hour comes at sort of 6, and you cannot be outside your hammock after 6 until about 7:30. It's horrendous. And often we would stop in communities and then just say, look, do you mind if we sling our hammocks up here? And it'd just be from a couple of beams in a shack. But yeah, it's fine. Sleeping wasn't too much of a problem, other than the very loud music played by communities at all hours. It was a bit hard work.
John, what are those communities like? What are the villages along the banks of the Amazon like? Are they? I mean, how are they using modern kit? Are they pretty backwards? What's the scenario? What did you come across?
The vast majority of them are really, really kind and really hospitable, and they'll want to give us things, and they'll let us fill up our drinking water. They all sort of live in the traditional. I will maybe send you some pictures through of the houses that they live in. Quite nice, picturesque, beautiful houses. But then there's quite a bad litter problem, and I think it's because up until recently they've not really had plastic or anything, so they've just thrown all the biodegradable waste into the river, and maybe due to lack of education or lack of a waste disposal, they're now just throwing plastic into the river as well, because they don't really realize the difference, I guess. So there's quite, they're very environmental conscious, but they also don't really know some of the issues, like what plastic and microplastics are doing. They are, a lot of kids running around. The men seem to work from maybe 4 a.m. up until 12 maybe, and then once the heat of the day comes in, they're kind of out of the way. And the women are usually really friendly as well, and they have some cool traditions, like making chicha, which is a drink. If you enter the village, they'll give you a bowl of this fermented yucca that they've chewed up and spat into a bowl and then added water, and it's fermented. We had a bit of an experience with well, I was, sick from both ends violently after my first experience with that. But after I got used to it, it was pretty nice.
And this is how naive I am, but I know the Amazon through movies and through documentaries. Are we talking, when you say you go into a village, is it wooden huts and things like that, or at what point does the Amazon, is there any sort of, does it get to cities? Does it get to real civilization? When you say you were given that fermented food, is that from somebody that's wearing Nike trainers and a peak cap, or are they, what are they wearing? What sort of experiences or differences are there from cities to villages out there?
There are proper tribes in parts of the Amazon, but not along our route. Our route was, they were wearing football shirts and you still have very traditional looking people, but they definitely all had access to like Western clothes, and there'd be corrugated iron on the roofs and tarpaulin and stuff where the thatch had blown off or whatever. So they had access to a lot of things. There's a lot of barges going up and down the river. And then after what, 700? No, actually after 1200k, we reached our first big city, which is Iquitos, which is the capital of the Peruvian Amazon. And I think you're talking like don't quote me, actually, I've forgotten the figure. I think it's like 500,000, but it's a big city.
Okay, and am I right in saying, were you abducted prior to the main incident? Was there incidents of being abducted, or you were taken into villages, Jan, and areas that you thought, which way is this going to go?
Yeah, so going back to the kind of anaconda sort of situation, you get a lot of guys who are like petrified of anacondas, and they'll show you the actual picture from like the Jennifer Lopez film Anaconda, and they'll show you that as like a news article, and you're like, come on, that's not real. There's no such thing as like a 30-meter kind of anaconda. So you get these guys who are kind of scared of that sort of thing, and then you get someone else who's scared of the next community down the river. So it's quite difficult to know how seriously to take the dangers. So we would kind of just have to go, well, that's our route. So we would get on our boats and go. And almost immediately, I think it's about 6 kilometers downriver from a place called Andoas over the border into Peru, from Ecuador into Peru. We got basically surrounded there by all the kind of young fighting age males. They weren't really angry, but they certainly weren't too friendly towards us. They basically just grabbed our boats and just said, "You're coming back to the village with us, where the village elders will decide your fate." So that was a bit twitchy.
And are they speaking English to you?
No, we've got terrible Spanish, actually. So it's something that we've learned is we really need to have better Spanish. And even if it is Spanish, some of it's so kind of colloquial that you can't really understand the sort of Spanish that they're speaking. So you try to use like translation apps, but then that can be seen as a little bit offensive. So you just have to, you pretty much have got to get on your back and show your belly and just roll over and be as friendly as possible, because bear in mind, we're more or less twice the size of the average man out there. So you've really got to kind of look friendly and open face and open hands, and yeah, so it is quite difficult.
At that point, I mean, are there guns on you? Have they got knives? What's the? There's so many of them.
I'd say that they were bolshy, but they weren't particularly aggressive. One of them had a machete, but it wasn't. I mean, everyone's got a machete. It's like us having an iPhone almost. Everyone walks around with a machete there, so it's not. I wouldn't say he was holding it in a malicious kind of way, but there were you just realise that these are all the young men from that village, and I think there were 11 of them, and 3 of us. So we just sort of went, okay, we need to just do what they say, and they just took us back in, essentially.
What's the marine inside you doing at that point, Buffalo?
Yeah, I think we all, when it initially happened, this was the first time it happened, I think we were all kind of preparing ourselves for a scrap. But we could tell that, I think we were preparing for it because we didn't know what was going on, but we could kind of see in their eyes that it wasn't going to turn into that. There was one sort of older guy that was trying to be more diplomatic with us. But yeah, we're definitely aware of where our machetes were just in case. And then after that situation, Jan came up with pretty much the SOP that we ended up using. You know, if something like that happens, we will just use our weight to capsize their boats and go if it turns nasty. And that was kind of our main plan for if something bad was to happen later down the line.
And that one, John, obviously you're taking into the elders. Are they after money? Are they after anything? What did the elders say to you?
I mean, I think they're very honourable. Like most of the communities, or all of the communities actually, as an Apu is the main man, basically. He's the guy that makes all those decisions within the community, and it's basically a localized authority. You know, they'll make sure none of our stuff was stolen. They'd be very sure to, because they'd search through all of our kit, and there'd be hundreds of villagers in there looking at everything. They're all very, very interested in us. It would take hours and hours, and you know, kids with putting their hands on everything. It was a nightmare. We thought we were going to lose a lot of kit, but despite them being very angry with our presence and then cooling off once they realised that we were an expedition, we weren't a risk, and then they would be very concerned that we hadn't lost anything. So they're very honourable. Where was I going with this again? What was the question?
It was just, how did you get out of it? What did the elders say?
So the elders kind of had a I guess like a kangaroo court, I suppose we'd call it. So two of them will just stand up and have a bit of an argument, and all the villagers will agree with one or with the other. And we're sitting there wondering if one's talking in our favour and if one isn't. But then as it goes on, and as they search us and they realise that we're not a threat, then they all start laughing with us, and like we show them the kit, and then they become interested. And then, you know, eventually you can go. But it's the initial, they're afraid of us. Westerners in the past have been bad news for these communities. Yeah. Be it oil prospecting, illegal mining. They believe that there's been people down there stealing organs and selling them on the black market, and that's actually what they thought we were every time. We were organ thieves. So we had to persuade them that we weren't that, and then eventually they'd get the message and let us past.
You literally
didn't actually let us pass in the first scenario. We had to skirt around them on a barge. So we were able to follow the river, but we weren't able to paddle. They were adamant that we couldn't paddle down their part of the river, unfortunately.
So you're standing there watching two people argue in a language you don't understand, hoping that they let you go.
Yeah, with big angry cheers from an entire village. Yeah.
Jeez, that must be pretty stressful.
Yeah, it was pretty stressful.
So, John, take us. Where were you on the Amazon when the incident happened? Tell us the story.
The main incident, I guess, that we were about 4 days downstream of Iquitos, so about 200 kilometers upstream of the Colombian border.
And what happened?
Well, that's where we were.
Keep going. This is it. Yeah. Go for it.
So a boat, we'd passed. So we woke up at about 5 a.m. in a place called Pebas. The guy had said it's very dangerous downriver. You get killed downriver. We heard that almost every day. So it was just one of these again. It's like, cool, man. Yeah, we're fine. We've got this. And then we paddled for about 3 hours. We went past a place called Nueve Pebas, which had a party going on at like 7:30 in the morning. So I think this was on the 30th of July, and the Peruvian Independence Day is the 28th. So they'd been partying for two days solid, I guess. And I guess
John, can I interrupt? Are you in a kayak each, or are you in one?
Yeah, we had two Canadian canoes. We did the whole. Once we took to canoes, it was Canadian canoes as opposed to kayaks.
Okay.
And then once we got to Iquitos, we joined them together. We basically got some local hardwood and screwed into both canoes, so we had like a catamaran. So we were connected with a two-hulled catamaran boat that we could paddle at each side on.
Okay. So you're told you're going to get killed if you keep going, and you kept going.
Yeah, but again, like Ian was saying earlier, you'd hear about these dangers all the time, and you'd hear about 30-meter anacondas, and there's a lot of bollocks to sift through and try and find out what the actual dangers are. We knew there was pirates in the area, but you know, we knew there was risks, but also when somebody says you're going to die downstream every single day, and all you meet is a lot of friendly people, then you just have to keep going. Like so, you know, that was our plan. We'll just keep going, and hopefully our smiles will be enough to appease most people. But yeah, this boat basically approached us from the rear. You can hear the boats coming from miles off on the water because it's, you know, kilometers wide at this stage, and there's nothing to stop the noise of an engine. So you hear this pecky engine coming up from a long way off, and then it'll stop. Well, this one in particular was coming right up on our stern. So the Amazon's so wide. Why is he? You know, if he's just going down the river, why is he right behind us? And he stopped and then came a bit closer, stopped, came a bit closer, stopped, obviously checking us out. And then eventually we were like, all right, come here. We waved at him and said, like, how you guys doing? What's up? And they came alongside. I was on the left, in the left-hand canoe. Ian was in the right-hand canoe. So they came along the left-hand side and grabbed onto our boat and started offering us some local alcohol that they make. And it was just it was a very uncomfortable conversation. He wasn't like friendly. There was no reason for him stopping us. He was just wanting to have a look in our boat and see what we had. And after about 10 minutes, he'd maneuvered himself behind us basically. So we were trying to go off downstream, and he'd held onto the back of the boat at this point. And then the weapon came out, and well, Jan kind of had the next move from there.
So as the boat was approaching, though, what were you saying to each other? This is a strange one. This isn't normal. What were you guys talking about as you saw it? Approaching, stopping.
No, yeah, it was a bit odd. Obviously, they were doing something called sort of dicking, where they were obviously looking at us and seeing what we were like and checking us out. When they came, we didn't have much time to discuss it. They came alongside, and because we often get guys approach us and say, who are you, what are you up to? It's usually reciprocated. They might be frowning at us at first, other people, but once they kind of realise we're no sort of danger, they end up smiling with us and have a laugh, and we crack on our way. But these guys, well, particularly the one who had the gun on him, he was, he just looked like a malicious little arsehole, to be honest. And so we weren't getting the reciprocated kind of hello, how are you, what are you up to, smiles, all the body language that you use when you're trying to be friendly. It wasn't reciprocated at all, and he just sat there and just kind of eyed us maliciously.
So he pulled his gun, and what's happened then?
As sort of John alluded to earlier, I sort of said to him, if someone comes alongside and they're going to be nasty, I'm going to whack them with my paddle and jump in the water and try and capsize their boat. And luckily, I just did that. It wasn't much thinking going on. He pulled the pistol out, and I don't particularly like pistols being pointed at me, so I just whacked him with my paddle, hit him sort of high up in the chest, and then dove in, went on the other side. It's the first time I opened my eyes underwater in the Amazon, because I was a bit worried about parasites and all sorts. I remember seeing the underside of the boat, and I basically came up and did a water muscle up, so not as hard as a muscle up, of course. Kicked out, pulled the boat down to try and capsize it, and then basically got myself in the boat as it was filling up and was sort of about to go over. But yeah, I should probably cut back to John, because when we've talked about it, there's bits I've obviously missed. I was underwater and I didn't hear any gunshots, whereas John heard all of them. So it's quite weird how we sort of not interpreted it differently, but just had different experiences. But yeah, this is where the first shot missed me, and the second shot went through John's right shoulder. So.
Yeah.
John,
so
what happened?
Yeah, I mean, Ian's move with the paddle is definitely like a life-saving move. I would say it stopped the guy from getting up on aim at us, and it stopped him being able to take an aimed shot. And like, these guys were stupid. They had a distance weapon against us with paddles, but they were right next to us, and that allowed us to close the distance as quickly as possible. And so as soon as Ian's done that, I've just jumped onto the guy's boat as well, and I can remember hearing one shot. I think it was probably aimed at Ian, and then this second shot, I just remember feeling it really, and then I was in the water too. So I don't know how long I was either approaching him or scuffling with him. This bit's a little bit hazy, to be honest. I think I'd got to his boat and maybe just started to grab him when the second shot hit me, and I've gone straight into the water from that point. I guess when I've gone in, that's probably when Ian's come up, and I also remember being directly under their boat, thinking, which side should I pop up on? Because I'm thinking the guy's probably just going to be waiting to shoot me in the head as soon as I pop up. He's already hit me once. He's still got the weapon. So I remember quite vividly thinking, like, which side of this boat do I come up on? And I came up on the far side of the boat, which is the same side Ian had come up on. So then when I've come up, I've seen Ian and the guy tussling because Ian's come up to try and capsize the boat and ended up in a wrestling match with this lad trying to. Well, Ian was saying he was trying to keep the muzzle out of his face, basically. All I remember seeing is just the guy and just dunking him underwater and holding his head down, really. And then I felt another shot go through my leg under the water. So yeah, at that point, I was pretty pissed off. Didn't want to get shot again. Managed to sort of follow his hands down under the water. Again, it's murky, so I couldn't see anything, but I was able to just follow his arm with both my hands. And luckily, it was the hand with the weapon in it. And I just twisted it out the back of his hand. And 2 more rounds have gone off underwater. And then I've kicked back and surfaced. And the other guy surfaced about 3 meters in front of me. And then Ian and I have just swam as fast as we could back to our boat, which is about 15, 20 meters away by then. And then I kind of said, yep, I've been shot a couple of times, and gave Ian the weapon, and he checked it, and we had like 4 rounds in it. So that was a nice comfort that, you know, if anyone else came back, at least we'd have a bit of defense for ourselves. And yeah, Ian sort of checked the exits of both of them, and nothing was bleeding heavily. I still had full movement. I was able to paddle. So really, really lucky. Neither of the shots really hurt, to be honest. They both went in and out. They didn't hit anything major. There was no major bleed, no bone. And like I said, I could continue fighting. I could continue paddling after that. So just incredibly fortunate, really, that none of them were worse.
Did the pain come in later? Because did adrenaline take over? Was it painful later when you were getting patched up, or was it always just kind of like in and out and you could handle the pain?
It really wasn't that painful. The adrenaline initially, and then within maybe 15 minutes, Ian had got out some pretty strong painkillers and given me that. So then I was kind of spaced out for the next couple of days, and then I was on painkillers for I think 6 days or something. And I've got pain in my arm now. My leg's totally fine. That was just muscle damage. That's pretty much repaired already. But my arm, I can't tense my bicep at all. It's just very annoyingly not able to use it at the moment. And there's a bit of pain in my elbow, but I think that's just nerve damage, and my arm's numb, but I can still do everything else. Like, I've got all my movement, so just the bicep really. So I think it's snapped some kind of nerve end.
Ian, you're in the water. Did you not hear any gunshots at all?
No. So I came, followed the sort of IA, I guess, and came up on the other side, pulled up, grabbed his arm, was having a little. I was from a bit of a precarious position, holding his arm as the boat was kind of capsizing, and I was just trying to keep that, sort of holding his wrist and bending it just away from my center of mass and from my face. But as that's happening as the boat's going over, and as we're going over, I just see John come up like a bloody shark and just dunk him, and he's gone. And I was like, oh well, problem solved. But then when he surfaced again, I saw John surface on my right, and he surfaced just in front of me. As he was climbing onto the bottom of his boat, because it's fully capsized then, I see he didn't have the pistol, so I was like, John, let's get out of it. And then, yeah, Johnny said to me, I've got a pistol. And I was like, it's good news.
Nice one. Yeah. So the last you saw of the guy, he was clambering onto his boat?
Yeah, basically.
Well, the last we saw them, I guess they were we were paddling like hell away from them, thinking they might have friends coming. So we were just trying to make distance from them. But the last we saw, they were both on their boat bailing it out. So they must have got it over, and they were trying to get all the water out of it. But I think, Ian, you probably noticed that there was no engine. Yeah, so they basically they were just in the water and floating.
Stranded.
Yeah.
Maybe crocodiles got those guys. Yeah.
The police picked them up within about an hour. Like, we were pretty fortunate, and the guy had been shot in the hip as well. So in that motion of taking the weapon off him.
Oh, in the wrestle.
Yeah, got him
right
as well.
So any idea what will happen to them? Will they? I mean, the police turned up. Will they get arrested? Jail time? Let go. See you later, lads.
Ongoing at the moment.
Wow.
We're sort of doing Zoom court meetings over the next few weeks. So we're not chasing it. If the Peruvians are very ashamed of what happened, and we had a really good relationship with the mayor of Iquitos and a lot of the military guys in Iquitos. So they're all like shocked and disappointed that this has happened. So I wouldn't be surprised if they throw the book at these guys. But and they, Peru is an amazing place to go. I wouldn't want that to put anyone off from going. If you want an adventure holiday, get out there and you'll have a great time. But maybe just stick to the tourist trips. Don't go off on a canoe on your own in some places.
Or take a couple of Marines.
They don't want this incident to risk their tourism, and it shouldn't, because it is a great place.
So what's the process? You guys have swam back to your boat. You've realised you've been shot twice. I've watched the video of you. You're talking to camera, and Ian's paddling. You get picked up. What's the process? How did you get out there?
Yeah, well, we both started paddling, and then quite quickly Ian took charge at this point. He was in the sort of the carer's role, I guess. And he was like, Johnny, stop paddling. There's no point. You're getting weaker and weaker. Get onto sending the SOSs and start sending all the texts. So I ended up sending all the GPS SOSs and contacting mates in Iquitos that could help us in Set Navy as Ian's paddling us down to this community. And then when I'd finished doing that, I had the phone in my hands, and we'd been blogging everything else, and it felt like the right thing to do is get a quick blog video. And then we got really close to the community, and still worrying if they were going to be hostile or not, because maybe these guys came from this community. And we noticed women and kids on the bank, and some friendly guys came out and took us in the last few meters. And then instantly Ian was putting iodine on me and bandaging me up in the boat. And then the villagers took us up into the community and put me in a hammock, and we just kind of chilled there until the Peruvian Navy arrived.
And the Navy came out and picked you up and took you where you needed to go, hospital.
Yeah, an armada of support, really. Like, we were astounded. There was a Brazilian hospital ship, lots of Peruvian SEALs, special forces, a gunboat with an infirmary on board. Yeah, they sent everything, like, so.
Really?
Yeah, we couldn't believe it, and they escorted us right the way back to Iquitos in a boat, and they didn't ask for anything. They're just absolute brothers in arms. I can't thank the Peruvian Navy enough, to be honest.
And John, what was it, a phone call home? Was it an email? How did you break the news to the folks back home that were following you that you'd been shot?
Yeah, annoyingly, I guess we'd had emergency contacts on our Garmin, so the SOS sends out a response to the Garmin emergency response, and they were brilliant at helping as well, the whole scenario. But also, we had an emergency contact, so my brother and Ian's girlfriend Cara both got these SOSs too, so they were then worrying without us being able to reassure them for a good while. So when we got back into Wi-Fi the next day in the hospital, it was pretty haunting for me and Jan, reading all the family messages, like, what's going on, can anyone respond? Like, that was probably the hardest bit, wasn't it, Ian? Just like reading their worries, really. But I wouldn't say anyone overreacted, nobody panicked. They all kept their cool, but they must have really been thinking, both the lads' SOSs have gone off right in the middle. Like, how bad could this be? And then they start getting drip fed little bits of information that there's been a medical emergency, and they don't know. So as soon as we were able to on Wi-Fi, we basically sent messages out to everyone that we thought might hear through the grapevine, just reassured them that there'd been an incident, but we were alive and well.
Yeah, is that right? Everyone pretty scared back home, and it shows you that everyone loves you when you saw those messages, I suppose.
Yeah, certainly. It'd gone through to Cara and Ben, but they, to be honest, did a sterling job of sort of staying calm. And Cara was giving the contact details of the guys we knew in Iquitos, our British consulate, and a friend of a friend who we had met through the military. Actually, I knew him for a para. And basically got in touch with them, and then they were, so it's going from Garmin to the UK, then UK giving Peruvian numbers to Garmin, so then Garmin were then messaging these guys in Iquitos, and they just sent this, it's an amazing armada. It was like it was kind of a Top Gun moment, because they were strutting down the village, sort of Peruvian Navy SEALs and medics all there. I think the villagers are like, who the hell are these two guys?
Yeah. These celebrities. Yeah, no, hey, fair enough. It's fantastic to hear that they were there for you and they got you out. And how? I mean, what is it like now, John? I mean, when did this happen? When did you get shot?
Happened on the 30th of July.
30th of July. So I mean, we're a couple of weeks since. Are you sleeping okay? Have you flashbacks, memories? How are you?
I'm sleeping fine. It's just really annoying that I can't train, to be honest. Like, I've been for one run and it was okay, but the jolting was annoying my shoulder. I can't go in the gym really to do any upper body stuff on my right hand side, so that gets me down, I suppose, because exercise is the best way to a happy life. So until I can do that again, I'll be pretty pissed off, I think. But sleep wise, and I've not had any flashbacks, and Ian and I have spoken about it a lot, and we're very aware of the mental health situation. The Corps was very good about making sure lads were aware of PTSD. So we talk about it a lot, and the way we see it, that we did everything right to save each other, and there was no I don't know, there's nothing like that we could have done more. So there's no guilt or anything in there. It's just like we're fine, and it was, thank God it wasn't like in an artery or in my head, but it wasn't. So there's no point in thinking about what could have happened.
What could have happened? Yeah, and that training, obviously the military training, to react as quick as you did, and to know what to do. It's, I mean, I'm picturing like a Hollywood scene. You hitting the guy with the oar straight in the water, straight into action. Maybe if you didn't have the military training, you wouldn't even be on this expedition. But do you think the average guy, me, is reacting like that? Do you think that's all training just came back to you in that instant that you'd actually thought about that scenario, and when it actually presented itself, you went for it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, military training definitely helps, because you have initial actions of the IAs, and you have SOPs set up for military training to return fire and all that sort of thing. But to be honest, it wasn't a fight or flight. It was fight for flight, if you know what I mean. So it happened so quickly. He pulled the pistol out, and something in me just went, no, I don't like that. So just hit him with my paddle. And then just went straight in for. Just didn't want that. I didn't want that muzzle pointed at me, like at my center of mass, to be able to get a round off into me. So went underwater to then get them off balance. So I mean, yeah, the military definitely, I'm sure, comes into it. But yeah, ultimately, it's quite difficult to explain, because it's almost like your unconscious kind of takes over, and before you know it, we're climbing back in the canoe, and John's gone, "Oh, mate, I've been shot twice." And I'm like, fuck. So then, but the sort of working out the triage afterwards is definitely a very useful military skill, in terms of working out what the next most important thing to do is. I check Johnny's wounds, check he didn't have a catastrophic bleed, and they were both quite clean. There wasn't much blood coming out of them. So then that kind of calmed me down. I was like, okay, you're kind of doing all right. Let's get you to send messages up. I need to check the pistol, check the mag in the chamber. Then you're going to need some painkillers. Then we need to think about the next thing we can do is to get into a village, just in case we're getting followed up. So, but we were both thinking that, and it's but Johnny was still fit, and he shrugged this off like strong jock hide he's got. So like shooting a rhino was kind of pointless, but he was still good to go. Yeah, you just got to think about the next best thing to do.
Excuse me.
I think what John was saying there, we're both very aware of our kind of mental health, and there's a really sort of decent charity down here called RV1, and they're all over that kind of thing. A lot of ex-soldiers, and we just chat about it, and I think it's easy when you look back at a scenario, going, "Oh, what if that had gone? The bullet had gone 2 inches to the left or right? What could have it done?" But ultimately, you just got to look at what did happen, how you reacted, and then you do kind of like a hot debrief afterwards. Okay, when we come back, how are we going to make this a bit more secure? There's no point in kind of spiraling in the what ifs, because that's when you can kind of crash out and fall into some kind of depression or get flashbacks and that sort of thing. So we were quite hot on it, and we chatting to each other loads, making sure we weren't going to shock and that sort of thing. And then we went and got pissed afterwards and have a good chat about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, have you hit the beers yet? So you've shared some beers and shared the story, and yeah,
we had
Friends have been very generous. So spent a few nights out pretty drunk. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose you've got to just sort of calm it down and put it all in perspective, don't you? What you've just been through. When did it hit the press? Oh, I know when it hit the press, but how did it get to the press and things like that? Obviously, because I mean, it seemed to be everywhere the day that it broke.
We wanted to keep it quiet until we knew that we could leave Peru. We didn't. Everyone believed us. There wasn't any question of that, but it was just early days in the investigation for the police. So we were given a few police reports, etc. So we just kept it very quiet. And then the day we left, we put up a post so that everyone else on our Instagram could kind of understand what had happened. And then from then it just, well, actually it was a bit quiet for about a week as we spoke to a few people, and then once after about another week it went quite big.
It went quite big. I mean, as soon as I saw it, I wanted to speak to you, but obviously the Edinburgh connection was a real interest, just you've been a local guy. But I mean, how big has it got? Have you had other inquiries? It's obviously put something to see on the map to your charity and what you were doing.
Yeah, it's been great. Like, we've had a lot more donations come through the Just Given, from random people that have just seen it in the paper. So thanks to everyone again that's seen it and been shown real interest in the expedition. And I think we're going down to London this week to speak on ITV on live telly, so it might get a little bit bigger after that as well. But yeah, no, it's taken off, and we don't really know how to handle it. Don't know if we want this much sort of notoriety, but it's really good for raising money for charities, and it'll help us raise money to get back out there and complete this expedition. So we're just going to go with the flow and see where it goes.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's entirely up to you if you grasp it or you don't take the limelight out of this, because but what you've done it's inspiring the challenge you took on. I'd not heard of that challenge before, and getting all the way from the summit to the sea to then go through what you've gone through. The future is, I've spoken to so many people that have been in incidents or things like you guys that go on to TV careers, that go on to all sorts of things. There's this is opportunity here. The fact you've survived this and you've got such an interesting story to tell now. It's really, really interesting. You're saying that you're going to go back, and you say you've got to get the use of your arm back, John.
Yes.
How long do the doctors think it'll be until will the nerves come back? Will you be able to tense?
So yeah, I had an appointment with the orthopedics in the Royal Infirmary today, and they don't know. The bicep might never come back fully, but he says that there's all the other muscles around it are working, so they'll just grow in strength, and I should get almost the same amount of strength that I used to have, but not quite, because I'll be missing that muscle. Or maybe the nerve will just be ruptured or heavily bruised, and I might slowly just get it back. And then there's other options like nerve grafting as well. So it's still, I'm waiting to hear from some plastic surgeons now, because they deal with the nerve stuff. So I'll never know, but I will be able to paddle again without my bicep. It's just, you know, I won't be as good. And I'm a rope access technician now, so when can I next climb? It's a bit frustrating. I can't really go to work at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's annoying. But we're able to get a bit of money from the story, so that'll keep us ticking over, hopefully, until I can work again.
Well, quite right. Near-death experience, and you fought your way out and you survived. But something to see, obviously, tell us, what were you raising, or what are you raising money for?
So initially we were raising money for RV1, which is the mental health charity based in Exmouth. The Royal Marines charity, which is obviously a charity very close to our hearts, that help, you know, bootnecks that are struggling, and help families as well, and that are in the bootneck family. And Rainforest Concern, who spend a lot of time trying to protect rainforests all around the world. So we were raising money for them initially, up until the expedition leave date. And then once we left on the expedition, we wanted to find a local charity, and we found that in Joe Plum, the UK consulate in Iquitos, who runs a British-based charity out there to help educating children in far-reaching communities, which could keep them out of piracy or illegal logging or mining in later life if they have this opportunity at a young age. So we thought it was quite an important charity to support out there.
And that donation page is still live now. It's still out there, and you'll keep it running.
Yeah. We're on Just Giving, so it's live and running. And a percentage, we've split it 60-40. So 60% is of what we make will get us back out there and enable us to complete the expedition, and 40% will go to the Peru mission. And you know, if we make more than we need, then you know, we'll choose another charity, but we won't be pocketing any of that. Once we've completed the expedition, that's done, and everything made on top of that will go to charities that we choose, or charities that we already have partnerships with.
Fantastic. And Jan, yourself, now you're back. Are you into work, or what's the day-to-day at the moment for you? Or is it just all interviews and getting ready for TV?
No, I'm tiling my bathroom, so it's quite exciting. Next, and just kind of, I've got a house to do up before the mortgage changes, and the mortgage rates are criminal at the moment. So I'm just doing, you know, going back into the normal flow of things, really, other than the odd interview and such like.
Fair enough. And obviously the plan is to go back, is to finish that journey. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, we've got to go back. You can't let these things sort of defeat you. I know it sounds a bit corny, but you've got to, those kind of fears or whatever happens, you've got to kind of go back, face them, and also we don't want to leave Peru on such on a bad note like that. You know, the Peruvian people have been fantastic, and we want to go and kind of prove it is just a kind of a freak situation that happened. Don't get me wrong, we'll go back with a few more, maybe, you know, big strong lads to help us paddle and a bit more security, and speak to more military in Brazil and Peru and the police. So we kind of got good checkpoints to go into, but no, we're definitely going back.
The problem is that the piracy threat is all the way down the Amazon through Brazil as well. There was a journalist killed a British journalist killed in the Brazil side last year. So we do really are thinking about how to best make a plan, and that's going to be over the coming months, is really figure out how to make ourselves look like not a target that you want to mess with. And yeah, we'll be discussing that, but 100% we're going to go back and finish it, and hopefully we'll let you know how that goes, and once we're back.
Yeah, and I'll be following it, and I mean, I can only imagine something to see. It's such a great. There's so many challenges that you maybe can think of, something to see in different locations, different things. Who knows what? Get this one done, sort your arm, get things done, and then what happens next? The world's
the Nile and the Yangtze is the plan. Yeah, so it's the three longest rivers from their highest sources.
Oh wow! Okay, so there's a future in this.
Yeah,
good on you, John. We're both obviously Edinburgh lads, and a massive shout out. I see that the Summit to See everything that you've done has been heavily not maybe guided, or I'm sure they've helped, but Tyso in Edinburgh, a sort of a bit of a household name across Scotland for adventure. How have Tyso been involved with what you've been doing?
Yeah, we've got a huge amount of gratitude towards Tyso. Back in the day, my dad and Graham Tyso climbed together, and that relationship has followed down the family. So I contacted Chris Tyso, Graham's son, who now runs the company, and he was, really interested and wanted to support us. And through him and Andrew and a few other people within Edinburgh Tyso, they've kitted us out with all of our gear, including the Garmin devices, which helped us out massively after the incident. Amongst other great brands like particularly Berghaus and Scarpa, all of them have really helped us and got us off the ground. And if we hadn't had that support from Tyso, we'd probably still be here trying to get ourselves out there. So it's a massive thank you to them.
Fantastic. And I tell you what, your dad's climbed to some legends, isn't he?
Yeah. He's a good old boy. He's got. Did I mention the book earlier? Yeah.
You did. And I'm lining him up for the podcast. It sounds good.
So
you're on, you guys. Well, here, listen, what a story. I wish you every success. We all wish it hadn't happened, and what an experience and life threatening. But if it was going to happen to a couple of lads, you guys seem to be the pair that can handle it. So well done to you, and for getting home safe and getting back to your families.
Thanks a lot, man. Cheers for having us on, and thanks for your interest, and thanks to everyone that will be watching this and supporting us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll share this. The website, Summit to Sea, is it .org.uk?
Yeah, www.summit2sea.org.uk, and from there you can get onto all our social media and the donation side of it and everything else.
Awesome. Well, hope people go there. Hope people share it, and this grows. And when you get on the TV, we'll be following it even closer. So nice one, guys. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Nashy.
Good man. Cheers.